Well, Josh, I'm going to let you go first tonight on our first topic because I have a lot of thoughts and we may go over the alleged time limit that we have for this topic because I could spend a whole show on this. Um, Listen, what I saw Sunday night and really the whole weekend, and then I'll pass it over to you, was a disgrace, in my opinion, and a travesty of what NBA All Star Weekend used to be and what NBA All Star Weekend should be.
And that's totally fair. I mean, 200 points in an All Star game. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Like, did I get a little enjoyment out of it when I watched it live on Sunday? Yes, because we've never seen a team score 200 points. So I I did enjoy that aspect of it. But at the same time, like, you can just tell the players just don't care. Like, it's so obvious. And when I look at the All-Star weekend as a whole, the dunk contest is terrible. Thank you, Jaylen Brown, for like actually stepping up and participating in it. Um, but personally, my favorite part of the All Star weekend festivities now is the 3-point shootout. And of course, we also got Stephen Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu, which we'll get more into that later. But those were my two favorite parts of the All Star weekend. Because with the 3-point contest, what did we have? Like three or four guys tied at 26?
I think it was four because three move on and then they all had to shoot again.
Yeah.
And obviously the drama of the last shot when it was Karl-Anthony versus Damian Lillard, and Damian Lillard looked like he was going to easily win it, then bricked almost all of his last shots from that left corner until hitting the last shot with the money ball to win the competition. Um, Listen, I went on a 30-minute rant today on Brandon's World about this whole event. So, you guys, if you want to, go on my YouTube channel and watch that video, or at least go on Spotify and watch the audio of that. Because I think that this weekend exemplified that the NBA has two problems on its hand, not only with the All Star weekend, but I believe it ultimately as well transitions into the regular season. Um, but I thought, I didn't realize they changed the skills competition for it to be, first a passing and then, an obstacle course and then a shooting. And, they divvy up the points per round. I did not like that at all. To me, I don't know why they keep changing up the skills competition. I used to like it back in the day when I know there was WNBA players involved. There were legends involved, and you used to have to make like a certain amount of shots on the court. It'd be, a team member from each station, and then at the end they'd have to make a half court shot. I like that version of it. I like the obstacle course version of it, where it was, smallest versus bigs. But whatever the hell that was Saturday night was not entertaining. I agree with your assessment about the 3-point contest and Steph versus Sabrina. Absolutely the most entertaining parts of the night. And as I've stated on multiple times about the dunk contest, listen, Max McClung dunking over Shaq, it's cool, I guess. But I don't know how I'm supposed to be excited about a player who has been in the NBA theoretically for 3 years and can't even make an NBA roster. And it's no disrespect to guys in the G League. I just don't think G League players should be participating in All Star Weekend. I think the way it used to be was obviously rookies versus sophomores, and then you would stay out. All of the rookies would not participate in Saturday night. It would be just for their actual
Oh, you're talking about like the rookie challenge that they do on Friday night now.
challenge. Is the rookies and sophomores would play that on Friday, and then they would not be allowed to participate on Saturday or Sunday. It would be just for the All Stars, and then those rookies and sophomores that they were good enough the next year would obviously get to participate. I would like to see that moving forward because I think that the NBA needs to showcase actual all stars and not people from the G League who can dunk over Shaq bending down. Uh,
Let me just throw this idea out there. You know that out on the streets there's guys who probably will never make it to the NBA, let alone the G League, but they have amazing dunk skills, right? So
No, I am not wanting them in the dunk contest.
why not?
This is all star weekend. We should not let anybody besides all stars participate in any all star activity.
But if if you have these street guys who are putting on these amazing performances, getting millions of views on YouTube and stuff, you don't want to see what they can do on the big stage?
No, you know what it should be called then? The NBA Street Competition, not NBA All Star Competition. This should be where the best players in the world show off for millions of fans. Now, let's get to the actual game itself because it was a joke. I'm not gonna lie, I turned off the game in the fourth quarter. I really didn't
That's
even
fair.
I didn't even really I watched a little bit of the first half. I was back and forth. I put on other TV shows during this All-Star game. That's how boring it was. Because at one time, right before half, Luka Doncic took the ball and just basically attempted to try to throw the ball off the backboard, even though they said he attempted, a freak orders court shot. I thought it was a joke. Damian Lillard hitting the half court shot is like what you do in the gym after practice. It's not an all-star game. This is a freaking game. The best players on the court should be playing most of the game. And you should be playing some defense, and it should be about 110 to 105.
Yeah,
Um,
not 211 to 186.
so my thought on it is I think that what the in-season tournament showed, and me and you both have no idea what the hell the in-season tournament really was. We both obviously begrudgingly disagreed with the concept. But I did think what it did show is no matter how much money these players make, money does talk. Clearly, teams like the Lakers and Pacers did play harder because they were incentivized because there was $500,000 on the line for each member of the team if you won the in-season tournament. I think that in a perfect world in the NBA All Star game, if you're not going to do the home court advantage thing, which I realize why a lot of you and yourself included, I realize why it would be a bad look. You don't want somebody from the Charlotte Hornets deciding who gets home court advantage in the NBA Finals, and I completely understand that.
Because if you have the All-Star game decide who gets home court advantage, it makes the standings absolutely pointless.
Well, it doesn't for the first three rounds because you would still have obviously you would still want the coveted number one seed.
But
Now,
if even go, let's look at the MLB All-Star game because it used to be that way as well.
yes,
In the 2016 All-Star game, the American League won that, and that's how Cleveland ended up with home field advantage for the World Series. But when you look at the two teams' records, theoretically, the Cubs should have had home field advantage for that World Series, not Cleveland.
yes, but Chicago still won the game. So it depends on different sports. I do think home field advantage matters a little bit more in basketball than it does in baseball, and that's been proven.
Right.
No,
I'm not trying to compare the All-Star games, but you were talking about the concept of home court advantage. So
right, but I said I understand why people don't want to see it. Therefore, I think you have to at least incentivize the players, and this is how I would do it. You
okay.
give $1 million each to the winning team, whether they want to do team all stars, which I always thought was a better format, the captain style than the East versus West anyway. But
What about this USA versus World format? Why not?
See, I don't know because there's a lot of great world players. I don't know if there's enough, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. There might be to make up an all-star team, like a real all-star team.
Right.
I'm not talking about a guy who's a seventh man off the bench who's a good player, but he's not going to make an all-star team, but he would make it just because of the rules. I think that the winning get $1 million or $2 Each player would get $1 million or $2 million, and the losing team gets nothing. And I would like the idea that Nick Wright proposed on First Things First the other day of them having money bags on uh, the like scores table that the players can clearly see this is what we're playing for. And then the losing team has to give a bag to a winning participant. I think that instantly you raise the stakes and guys are going to want to play for that. Now,
Aside from the reference you used for that idea, I like that idea. I just don't like Nick Wright. Sorry, I don't.
now, in my opinion, which the NBA will never do, I've been advocating it for years. I think they should just get rid of the entire All Star weekend completely. They'll never do it because it's a money driven thing, and it was never more evident this weekend when it could have been in Gainbridge Fieldhouse, but the NBA said no. Let's put All Star Weekend in the Lucas Oil Stadium so we can put more butts in the seats. That's essentially what it was. The All Star Weekend now has turned into a money grab, and players like Anthony Edwards, who said, "I'm going to shoot with my left hand because it is an exhibition. I'm not trying to get hurt." Well, guess what? You know what I say to that? Anthony Edwards should be disqualified from never making an All Star game again because that's a joke. That shows that you don't care. Why should I care about watching your product if you clearly don't care about what you're putting out there on the court? That's my argument. And that's why next year, I am telling you right now, because I did it for one full year with the NBA. I took a year off from watching the NBA because I was disgusted with the product five years ago when Golden State got all their superstars. Yes, they ended up losing to Toronto in the finals, but that was the year when they had DeMarcus Cousins and Kevin Durant and Draymond and Clay and stuff, and they rolled through everybody in the West before they got to the finals and got all injured. I was disgusted by it because, as you say, sometimes in wrestling I was too predictable. I thought the NBA became too predictable.
And I totally understand that. I will say this: we don't know where the 2027 All-Star Game is going to be, but they already announced that next year's All-Star Game is going to be at the Chase Center in San Francisco, home of the Golden State Warriors, and the 2026 All-Star Game will be at the brand new Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, home of the LA Clippers. So,
speaking of someone that plays at the Chase Center, this was, and I know, Josh, you are a big advocate of WNBA basketball. Steph versus Sabrina outside of the free-point contest, which I thought, just because there was more participants, I thought was a little more exciting. But Sabrina absolutely impressed me. I did not know, I'll be honest, I did not think Steph was going to take it as seriously as Sabrina because let's be real, Sabrina had a ton of pressure on her because you know as well as I do, if she went out there and, only made 10 points as an example, there's going to be people on the internet, and I'm not going to name names, but people on the internet would be saying, see, that's why WNBA players should not participate in NBA All-Star Weekend. So there was way more pressure on her, obviously, than Steph. And by the way, I thought it was kind of a dickhead move by Steph to go second. I thought she should have went second because he's essentially the visitor.
That was just, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was decided by fan vote.
And I didn't even bring this up, but this is my other problem with the entire NBA All-Star Weekend. So I'm glad you brought this up.
At least I think it was decided by fan vote. Don't quote me on that.
Fans should not get a vote. 0% vote in who becomes an All-Star. I think it should be.
Do you feel that way for all All-Star games?
Yes, I feel that way for all sports because I think fan bias is real. You think players are better than I think. I think some players are good or worse than you, for example. I do not think fans should be involved in voting. I think it should be players, coaches, and media members. And that's it. For the starters, for the benches, for the participants, I think it should be earned by people that actually know the league, not by casuals who are spamming because they want, you know, for example, Tyreek Halliburton this year, who absolutely deserved an All Star game. But I'm using him as an example of, hey, he's our hometown guy for Indiana. Let's spam him and getting the starting guy for the All Star game. I think one year Andrew Wiggins was the starter
I think
for
that was the year it was here in Cleveland.
it might have been for one of the All Star games, and he didn't even deserve it. He was averaging like 10 points a game, but fans spammed him because they wanted to see it. I think it's a joke. And so to get back to Steph and Sabrina, I do think Sabrina should have went second. I thought Steph had the advantage going second. Sabrina did impress the hell out of me though, and I thought it was a fun event for what it was.
Yeah, I was very excited about this because I love women's basketball, whether it's the WNBA or women's college basketball. I think it's great, and sometimes I think it's unfairly criticized against men's college basketball or the NBA, what have you. But Sabrina more than held her own. And originally, I thought I had read that Sabrina Ionescu was going to shoot from the WNBA three-point line.
And I read that as well. And apparently, from what I had read, she had made the decision. She wanted to shoot from the NBA three-point line.
Fair enough. But you know what? She was still making them from the NBA three-point line, so it didn't seem to hinder her at all.
I mean, Steph needed the last round, and we know Steph Curry is obviously, maybe the greatest shooter ever. I think Klay Thompson and him are 1-2. I can definitely hear that argument for Klay because when Klay gets hot, I can make an argument Klay at times has been more lethal than Steph, especially we all remember Game 6 of 2016 against Oklahoma City.
Oh, yeah.
When he basically put Kevin Durant basically out of Oklahoma City at that point. But yeah, I mean, 3-point shooting, again, I like mid-range. I like layups. So 3-point shooting should not be excited as it is. I think we've all become immune to it because it's the way the game has gone. Outside of the playoffs, there is no mid-range. Now in the playoffs, you will see mid-range jumpers. You'll see analytics kind of thrown out the window. But Mike D'Antoni really ruined the NBA with the 7 seconds or less offense, in my opinion, where it would just come down and jack up a three. But I think with this, hopefully with Steph and Sabrina, the NBA helps get more eyes on the WNBA product. I have said for years, and I don't know how you feel about this, I think that the WNBA, and maybe it's not its fault, maybe it is, but the reason why fans like myself don't really watch a lot of women's college basketball or WNBA is 2 reasons. Number one, I have no idea where the hell it's even at. I know there's some games on Peacock here and there. There's games on ESPN here and there, but it is never marketed. And I think with the WNBA as well, like I didn't even know their All-Star game is in July. I didn't know that they had a completely different season and schedule set up than the NBA. Like I think if it was on, the same sort of timeline, if you will, you could do the crossover and get more fans involved. When does the WNBA season even start? I don't even know.
I think it's like mid. I always get confused with it. I think it's around like May.
So it's right during the heart of the NBA playoffs, which basically does it no favors. So,
right.
Maybe it's their fault. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But I don't even know who has the rights to it. I know Peacock has some games. I know ESPN has some games.
Right. But let me just say this super quick. I hope this is not a one and done thing with Steph and Sabrina. I want this to continue. And we'll get to Caitlin Clark here in a minute. But if she comes to the WNBA next season, why not expand it? Have it be Steph and Caitlin Clark, for example, against Damian Lillard and Sabrina Ionescu, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically you could. I am wondering, back to my idea about if you just abolish All Star Weekend. What if you just make the 3 point contest and this sort of Steph versus Sabrina 3 point shootout? What if that is essentially halftime of the NBA All Star game? Get rid of Saturday night completely because the dunk contest is a joke and they're not going to do this. But I'm saying, this is what I'm saying. If nobody's going to take this seriously, make this competition the halftime show of the actual All Star games. That's some dumb concert nobody pays attention to.
The only issue there is if Steph and Dame are playing in the All Star game, I don't think they're gonna want to come out and play in that type of competition.
No, it's a good point. I get that logistics issues. I mean, could you do it before the game? Could it be like a pregame thing?
That's definitely more practical, I would say. Your idea is definitely not a bad one overall. I totally get what you're saying. For me, the dunk contest, just to go back to that super, super quick, the dunk contest hasn't been good. I know you didn't love it, and I still don't get why, but the last time the dunk contest was good was Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine and their whole battle. That's the last time I remember the dunk contest being good.
I'm going to say this. Jaylen Brown did an in-game windmill basic dunk and got a 48. I was disgusted. That's when I turned the dunk contest off. I've never in my life this, and again, we are quote unquote media members, we're podcasters, we're fans. I don't like the NBA. Obviously, I feel like as much as you do, I'm a bigger NFL guy and a bigger football guy. But I like the NBA. But the NBA does so much to hurt itself